Good afternoon, everyone. The paradigm shift that I'm going to be discussing today is the change in American perception of smokers throughout the 20th century. Now, smoking. It's definitely a paradigm shift. We can see that our attitudes have changed throughout the years. Now, something that paradigm shifts have in common is sort of a gradual change, something that you can measure and kind of analyze through different years. But what I find very particularly interesting about the paradigm shift in smoking is that it basically took a hairpin turn and turned 180 degrees in our opinions of smoking around only 1 year. So that's why I find this paradigm shift very interesting to study. So here's a picture of a man smoking. Now, to all of us, this may be a little bit disconcerting, but it's generally pretty normal. This man is old, so clearly smoking back whenever he was young was not kind of thought of the way it is now. And this picture is also in black and white, which also kind of helps us justify this scenario, and we find this picture somewhat normal. However, when we look at this picture, it's two young children smoking. Now, clearly this picture was taken pretty current. The picture is in color. Now, this one is definitely abnormal. It's a little unsettling for us to look at. And this is exactly what I'm going to be talking about today, how different our opinion of smoking is throughout the years. Now, this is a very, very common image that we see when we think of smoking. But this image hasn't always represented the idea of smoking in American culture. And this is the exact 180-degree turn that I was talking about. I don't know if you recognize this woman, but this is Cruella de Vil from a Disney movie. Now, parents usually trust Disney 100%. Disney teaches their children lessons, usually positive lessons. 101 Dalmatians was made in 1961, and this was before the scientific studies had been released that smoking was dangerous for one's health. So you can see that in this picture, even Disney caught along with the stereotypes that was going on before we understood that smoking was bad. This cigarette was used to point out that this woman is very popular or very wealthy. It definitely represented a social or economic status of this woman. Now, smoking was promoted as healthy before the data came out that said it was unhealthy. You can see that in this picture, on the right-hand side, it's a little bit cut off, but it says, will not affect your throat. Now, clearly, we know that's not the case, but it was presented as fact. Here's another picture. Physicians used to advertise for smoking and even say that it was good and they recommended it. Dentists also did the same thing. Dentists promoted smoking, even though now we clearly understand that there's something very wrong with that. And finally, this statement I found was very, very assertive. Not one single case of throat irritation with the Camel cigarettes. I don't understand how they could have put that in an advertisement now that we know what smoking does now, but it's very interesting to note that that's before the paradigm shift. Now, the 180-degree turn happened in 1964. According to Laura Martin, however, bad effects of smoking in scientific studies were in 1912, and they were released in the Journal of American Medical Association, but they weren't published until 1950. Now, in 1964, the Surgeon General now announced the statement that smoking is bad. From reports from the CDC, he said three things. The first is that it's a cause of lung cancer in men. The second is that it's a probable cause in women. And the third was that it causes chronic bronchitis. Now, directly after this, warnings were implemented on labels. You can say this is 1965. That's only 1 year after the announcement. And this warning says that cigarette smoking may be, you can notice the words maybe. So that's kind of iffy statement. People really don't have to pay attention to it. However, 4 years after that, just 4 years, it changed into a very, very definitive statement, and it said that it is unhealthy for you. Now, these warnings you can see changed after the years of 1964. However, they're continuing to change even now. In 1984, these labels were changed once again, and now what we do with labels is that there are 4 different warnings and they're rotated on cigarette boxes so that people can see all 4 different warnings. Now, these warnings came from actually a tobacco company. The tobacco company did a research study and basically presented to the public what they are required to do or mandated to do from the government, and this is from the R.G. Reynolds Tobacco Company. Now, things are starting to change even more. There are labels on cigarette packages warning people of the dangers, so it would directly affect the people who are smoking. However, now we're trying to protect the people who are not smoking. Now, culture has changed so rapidly that not only are we concerned for the people who are smoking, but the people who are around smokers. Now, according to nosmoke.org, by October 5th of 2012, there were 25 states that are 100% smoke-free in buildings, restaurants, and bars. So things are very, very rapidly changing, and this is a very clear sign that can say no smoking in this building. Now, we are continuing to make changes in our culture and our society. This, again, very, very common image for us to see. However, it's important to know that this was not always the common image. Around our peers, this is the image that we grew up with, no smoking. But this is a perfect image to say that there are changes being made, and it wasn't always like this. Culture is changing, and a lot of studies and surveys are done, but one of the most influential ones that I saw was a study done by the NPR. Now, of course, there are health insurance laws and life insurance laws, but even those are becoming affected now. We are in the process of changing life insurance laws, and in the future, people are predicting changes in even health insurance. 58.5% of the Americans that the NPR survey polled stated that they do believe that smokers need to pay more for health insurance. Now, this is a very evident change in our culture, especially going back to the pictures where it said the smoking was healthy. So over the years, we have changed dramatically in our view of smoking, and this is a very, very important paradigm shift to study, because not only does it affect many, many lives in the past, but also in the present. And in particular, my grandmother lived through this experience. She was a smoker because of the healthy things that doctors said. However, she lost both of her lungs, got 2 lung transplants, and she is perfectly fine today. So this is why I chose this paradigm shift to analyze. It's very, very important, and I really hope that change continues to happen in our culture. Thank you.